Topping today's news, the Ministry of Tourism keeping its eyes on the latest COVID strain reported to be in the United States. The government anticipating an increase in illegal migration in the coming months. Major repairs to begin on Gladstone Road, and the latest on the FTX saga as its former CEO faces up to 150 years in prison. Good evening, Bahamas. I'm Jcn Saunders. This is your JCN Evening News. It's a pleasure to have you join us. After experiencing record amounts of travelers during the holiday season and the possible threat of the new COVID variant Omicron, officials at the Tourism and Aviation Ministry telling our JCN News team that there are possible concerns in that regard. This much coming from Director of Aviation and Deputy Director General of Tourism, Dr. Kenneth Romer.
There are always concerns, but again, this is a road that we would have been down before, and persons would remember the work of the Tourism Readiness Recovery Committee that already put in place our response to any kind of market disruption. Fortunately, the Bahamas is known for its resilience. Whether we prove resilience in the aftermath of hurricanes, we have proven resilience in the aftermath again of market disruptions again caused by COVID. We are a resilient people, a resilient country, and no matter what comes our way, we are very confident that we have the capacity to handle it.
Now, with tourism numbers on schedule to surpass pre-pandemic numbers, Dr. Romer tells JCN News that there are some big plans underway for aviation and tourism.
Our team jumped in to put in place contingency measures. So they were able to measure and manage, again, traffic at the gates. Our NAD jumped into and sprung into action in terms of managing the length of times aircrafts are on the gate. We're able to manage, again, the queues at the airport. We worked with our FBOs in terms of managing their departures. And, of course, our air traffic controllers, who were managing yesterday over 700 movements alone, sprung into action. They worked overtime, and they ought to be commended. I think sometimes the traveling public might not be aware of the amount of work, the volume of work that goes into managing a very busy and congested and saturated airspace. But our team sprung into actions, whether they were the Ministry of Tourism team or Bahamas Air, our commercial airlines, our private carriers. They sprung into action, and this has been a part of our contingency plan. So the plans worked as though we expected it. These things happen, but we were very pleased, again, with the overall outcome.
Dr. Romer said some of the bigger announcements in relation to Grand Bahama will be made by Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Tourism and Aviation, Chester Cooper, in the coming days. A computer glitch at the Lynden Pinley International Airport on Monday resulted in long hours of waiting due to many delayed flights. Now, as operators at the airport are back to normal, Director of Aviation and Deputy Director General for Tourism, Dr. Kenneth Romer, gave a report as to what transpired during one of the busiest days for travel.
We manage over 700 aircraft movements. We put in place contingency plans, so we have our teams have been working together with the NAD, with air traffic control, with tourism. And we've been managing traffic congestion, so the plan was working. Unfortunately, there was a challenge with a computer challenge coming out of Miami air traffic that caused there to be some disruption in the normal flow. So there were some unplanned delays. And so we would have heard the calls. We would have heard, again, the narratives from our airspace users and also our passengers. So you want to always be very responsive in terms of providing an explanation as to what went right or what went wrong. We expect to be accountable and provide answers when we know the answers to those issues. Fortunately, the disruption was not a prolonged disruption. After several hours, we returned to a state of normalcy, but there was still some passenger inconveniences.
Dr. Romer says all passengers who were affected by the delays were accommodated and have moved on to their destinations. According to Dr. Romer, the air traffic control managed over 700 flights alone on Monday. With that being said, Dr. Romer applauded the team at the Lynden Pinley International Airport for springing into action.
We have really been putting in a lot of time, the entire tourism, investments, and aviation community. We put in place a strategy again that speaks to our rebound post-pandemic. Overall international visitor arrival numbers, you'll find out that they are very close to meeting, if not exceeding, pre-pandemic numbers. When it comes again to overall seat capacity, we are pleased now that Grand Bahama is performing 80% over 2019. Our family islands over 30%. And so we're very pleased. Again, airlines are returning in volumes. We had a wonderful amount of experiences in 2022 in terms of new flights, inaugurals, and also return to service, not just in Nassau, but throughout the family islands and especially Grand Bahama. And 2023 is going to be a phenomenal year for tourism, for investments and aviation. We're going to be very pleased about the outcomes.
The government expects an uptick in illegal migration in the coming months. This coming from Minister of Labor and Immigration Keith Bell on Tuesday, as he revealed the country has had a record number of repatriations in 2022. Although the majority of the migrants have been Haitians, the labor minister says that there has also been an increase in Cuban natives as well.
But as it stands now, there is a total of 345 persons in the detention center. The majority being females, 274 females, 143 males, and a number of other persons who are in the safe house. And as you would appreciate, the children, they're in the safe house along with their some next of kin. In addition to that, we would have had 198 Cubans, which make up those numbers in the detention center. And so it is obviously a concern for us. And you'd have seen up to yesterday, I think, a cruise ship intercepted a Cuban vessel. And also we know some landed in Key West, Florida. And so we are continuing to monitor the excessive migration from both Haiti and Cuba. And we are working to ensure that we have timely repatriations.
Minister Bell notes that the government must get approval and consent from the receiving countries before repatriations. He says there are many factors affecting this upward trend in illegal migration.
Well, usually we noticed around from November onwards, and again, it is seasonal. It goes up significantly. But again, we know that last year was the largest number of persons we repatriated for a very, very long time. And so that was quite significant. But again, to us, it does not necessarily mean that we are not only having success, but it talks about the level of activity in the area, which is increasing. And we know that the Ukrainian war is having a significant impact in Cuba. And Haiti has pretty much imploded. And so the CARICOM governments, along with the United Nations and the United States, we're looking to see how we could best address the issues in Haiti holistically.
Minister Bell goes on to assure Bahamians that the government and law enforcement are doing everything they can to capture all illegal vessels and apprehend all illegal migrants. Minister Bell encourages Bahamians to continue to pray for the people in Haiti and Cuba as those countries go through very serious crises. The Petroleum Dealers Association warned that they may have to cut back on staff coming into the new year because of the new minimum wage that was set to begin with the start of the new year. Minister of Labor and Immigration saying today that he has not yet had any talks with the associations, but says the dealers must be cautious in any action that they take.
However, I would wish to indicate to the petroleum dealers to exercise a degree of restraint and caution and not be swift of any sort of action. The reality is that we live in a country where nobody should be living below the poverty line. Nobody should be working and earning a salary which is below the poverty line. I am pleased that this government was able to introduce the minimum wage. And you would have indicated when we would have campaigned that it was our intention to increase minimum wage. We were in government for more than a year before we introduced this increase. And so we would have given everybody an opportunity, the employers that is, an opportunity to prepare themselves for the increase in minimum wage. And again, we are about to start the discussion on a livable wage so that not just the petroleum dealers, but everyone, all of the employers and everyone would be in a position to know what to expect in the future so that it isn't ad hoc, it isn't haphazard, it isn't something which is planned or something which is thrust upon them, but there is an expectation that everybody would know that there would be an increase in wages as we proceed, as we go forward.
When asked if he believes there will be more layoffs because of the increase in minimum wage, Minister Bell says this.
No, I'm satisfied that there won't be sweeping layoffs. the National Tripartite Council and the Department of Labor would have engaged in extensive discussions with all the key stakeholders in the country, and they would have met with them, they would have consulted with them, they would have heard, you would have gotten their views. And even though, as I would have indicated when I did my communication in Parliament, that there wasn't consensus on what the amount of the minimum wage should increase to, everybody know that there was going to be an increase. And we knew that even when we spoke, that it would have taken effect this year. So we'd have given everybody an ample opportunity. But again, I want to issue a word to the employers that to be cautious before they take any draconian action in respect to layoffs. And bear in mind that it is our view that nobody should be working for a salary less than the minimum, below the poverty line.
Meanwhile, Minister Bell asked the public to be on the lookout for another Labor on the Blocks event that is expected to come in March of this year. Just hours after the Bahamas recorded its first 2 homicides here on New Providence for 2023, the first traffic fatality was placed on the books as well. A 16-year-old male who was a passenger in one of the vehicles involved in the accident succumbed on Monday night to injuries he sustained some 12 hours after that accident. Police reports indicating shortly before 9 a.m. on Monday, the driver of a black Ford Explorer was traveling east along Bernard Road, while the driver of a burgundy Suzuki Alto, accompanied by the juvenile passenger, was traveling west when the 2 vehicles collided. Both vehicles were extensively damaged and resulting in the jaws of life being used to extricate the victims, who were all seriously injured. They were all transported to the hospital via emergency medical services personnel, where the 16-year-old succumbed to injuries shortly after 9 p.m. The driver of the black Ford Explorer was treated and discharged. However, the driver of the Suzuki Alto remains in hospital in serious but stable condition. Meanwhile, it has been reported that the 16-year-old victim of the traffic accident is the nephew of the female victim in the double homicide that took place in Montel Heights on January 2nd. Police investigations continue into both incidents. And finally, in this segment, in 2022, there was also a traffic fatality on the busy Gladstone Road corridor, which claimed the lives of 2 young men. The Ministry of Public Works and Utilities will begin much anticipated road improvements to Gladstone Road from John F. Kennedy Drive to Carmichael Road. The Ministry of Works officials posting a public notice on its social media pages advising that Bahamas has scheduled paving works in phases, with works commencing on Wednesday, January 4th, that's today, from 9 p.m. this evening to 3:30 a.m. in the morning for the next 4 weeks. The motoring public is also being advised to avoid this area if possible and to comply with all posted traffic signage. Only residents will be permitted entrance to the area. The ministry apologizes for any inconvenience caused. We'll take a break here. We'll be right back after these commercials.